How many of you have like really worked with audio before? A show of hands. Okay, so a decent amount in here. Very cool. How many of you have like tried to get some audio bits together for either traditional film or an AI generated short film, and just kind of like getting into the water a little bit? Okay. Very cool. Okay, we got a mixed bag here, so that's awesome. So my first job out of college, a scant 25 years ago now, was as a sound designer for cartoons. I was doing the graveyard shift for a lot of cartoons that were around on YTV in general, out of the animation industry in Ottawa. Get a shout out for YTV, very nice. Legendary station. I came into sort of creativity first in the sonic field. As I mentioned before, I was raised in the orchestra. I played a lot of instruments. And then I discovered film kind of after a failed attempt at coding in high school. Failed because I was sick of debugging all day, and I figured out that I actually like people. So, so I got into film, and the marriage of audio and film has always been something that's been deeply in my heart. And as you saw from my short earlier, I layer a lot in there, even though there's Kling 3 in particular, there's so much in that it helps you generate just getting the vibe of what you have in your prompt. There's still quite a bit of love and extra sunoing and 11 labs that I've done to really elevate what was already there in the first place. So I'm going to try and distill all of my experience in audio and a quick pass through on the technicalities of it. And all those of you who are experienced in here, please call me on my shit if I get something wrong. So let me just dive through this here. So starting off on the sound design for short films. Now, theories of sound design, where you start off kind of watching with your ears in a sense. And it's based on these three kind of like stacks that I like to treat it as. And the first layer is sound effects. Those are the obvious things. So like Foley with your feet stomping, or explosions, or guns, the sort of like key hero stuff. And those are called the diegetic sounds that are really sort of like, oh yeah, they're walking. I need to hear the footsteps. It's like on a hardwood floor, and they're wearing boots from the 1870s. So it's going to have a pretty particular clump to it, right? And then we get into ambience. Now, ambience is kind of the glue that like really holds the emotional impact of audio together. And that could be, like a city humdrum, like taxis, horns, people swearing at each other, that kind of like the tapestry that puts you into that environment and tells your brain, oh, I'm here, I'm really in this environment. And that's sort of like the cacophonous version of it. Brian, if I was doing some sound design for your brilliant short that you showed us, I'd amp up a lot of the stereo field of nature sounds, like streams, little wind rustles, leaves flowing, all of those little cues, especially when you're wearing headphones. That's where we start to like have that empathy towards the sound. And then score cues, of course, the music, above and beyond the kind of symphonic or, increasingly electronic pieces that we hear now, and really a mash of two if you're, looking at what Trent Reznor and Atticus Rose put together. It's more often cues that are enhancing what is happening in the scene, and it's not just sort of the score panning out. Like John Williams is brilliant at that. I mean, if you hear some of his pieces, and he just really has the emotionality of each scene really dialed in. So I'm going to throw a lot of references out here, sort of like rapid fire. It's from my well of like passion here. But if you're able to capture those at all, do watch those pieces with your ears. It's really fascinating what you start to appreciate when you just like hear and like just not so much take a look at the listen and feel how much deeper that it has impact. So when we're looking at sound, we're measuring sound in dBs. And, that looks like this here. My favorite engine in working in is DaVinci Resolve because it's very robust. It has an excellent audio engine inside of it. It's got a lot of built-in plugins that really take out, the grunt work of everything. And this is, my mix that I did, which is, really quite minimal for something with this, kind of bigness into it. But if we look at the dB meters, so you can see in the lower right corner, these are a stack of tracks. And this little section down here is kind of your master dB meter. So let me just pull that out a little bit. I'm going to take off the limiter for a second. I'll get into these in a little bit. I'll take the main track of where Kling is.
Our greatest invention.
It's so soft. I'm finally so happy.
So you can see right now, I've turned my limiter off, and it's really riding the rails there. I kind of use that on purpose to like hit the limiter a little bit harder. But when we're assessing like the loudness of our pieces, this dB meter is our North Star at all times. It tells us, here I'm absolutely maxing out. I'm pushing that horizon. It's probably going to distort on cheaper audio systems once you pass that 0 dB threshold. So when we're looking at dB meters, there's a lot of well-worn rubrics that you can follow to just make sure that you're in the right wheelhouse here. So I've got some pointers on like how you get that into DaVinci Resolve that I just showed you. Totally applicable to Adobe Premiere Pro, even CapCut. There's a lot of this under the hood, just not as finessed as the more professional platforms. So, and when you're mixing, when you're working in the digital world, you try to avoid 0 dB as much as humanly possible. That is where things will distort if you start hitting that. And there are tools like limiters, which I'll introduce to you in a bit, that really help you avoid that. So some good sort of like foundations when we're looking at, the different types of sounds that get into something and how they should play out before you go to a limiter. Dialogue should be, around -6 dB. I like to push it up there for online stuff. If you're going to film, there's a lot more, systems that have dynamic range and they're able to play those louds and quiets a little bit more faithfully. But if you're trying to get something across on phone, keep it higher is a little bit better, but not all the way because you're definitely going to get distortion. Music, -18 is a really safe spot. Pull that down all the way to there, and I'll show you how to tweak that in a second. Sound effects, -10 to -4 dB, depending on what, the impact that you're doing. It's a real sort of like system of playing with it. And then at the, in these sort of like master meters that I showed you, before you hit the limiter, I'm kind of going against my own rules a little bit in this mix because I did this very quickly, but try and hit it at -3 so that you've got a little bit of what's called headroom. And that's basically play between your loudest thing and the very top of the scale. Yes, sir?
Would you use compression?
Yes, always. Yeah.
How much compression?
Totally dependent on everything. There's different values of that. That's a little bit broader in the scope outside of what I'm trying to cover in the basics, but we'll touch on like introducing compressors and limiters. Limiter is a different kind of compressor. So limiter, absolutely. Limiter is your best friend. If you want to hit that -1 mark for your online stuff, which is like a really safe zone to hit that gives enough headroom for even like really cheap devices to not distort, -1 is your friend. And a limiter lets you push everything really hard and you will never get past that -1 threshold. Now, understanding frequencies is a big component of this too. So we're probably familiar with like fiddling around with like the graphic EQs on our stereos or, in our media players. The low end, the sub bass is 20 to 80 hertz. You feel it more than you really hear it. It's sort of like below perceptible hearing unless you're super sensitive and crazy like me. I hear it all over the place. So thunder explosions, kick drums, that's bass drums on drum kits. The proper bass between 80 and 250 hertz, warmth and power foundation of mix. Examples, bass guitar, the lower part of the sort of beginning of the male voice, that sort of like gravitas sits in that range. The mids is where we hear most of human speech and like melodies in particular. It's the sort of like intelligibility area, and that's presence and body, dialogue, of course, vocals, guitar, most instruments. And then highs, the really sort of like the sibilancy stuff. Yeah, that hits between 4 and 20 kilohertz, and kilohertz being 1,000 hertz. So just understanding that these are the guardrails that you're in, and you know, I can kind of show you actually, you know, just with my voice here. This is when I pull the bass up, right? This is when I remove the bass. This is mid-range going up. This is mid-range being cut. This is high-end being punched. This is really cutting the high end, right? So once you sort of understand, like, especially with your own voice and playing around with, you know, the elements that you're really comfortable with, like I always say, listen to a track and play around with the EQ to understand how frequencies really, you know, change the timbre, the literal understanding and the nuance of music, and certainly in films. Absolutely do this in films. Like, just play around, make it sound horrible, try and bring it back again and get a visceral understanding of that. Okay. This is a technique that I've started to play around with recently, and it's getting that sort of like, how do I get inspiration? How do I get the language of what a sound designer would do based on, you know, what's there on the screen? And we're a little bit compressed for time, so I'm not going to be able to like really show you a run through of it, but I'll walk and talk you through it. So basically, if you're already playing around with generative video, you're kind of familiar perhaps with the notion of like first frame and last frame generation. Does that make sense to most people in here? Is there anyone sort of being like, what are you talking about right now? Raise your hand, don't be shy, we're here to learn. Okay, you've all got an understanding of that, right? So it's taking that principle of doing a first frame, last frame to get like, I want this shot to start this way, and I want this shot to end this way. First frame, last frame. And an AI model understands that and animates for you based on what you prompt it with. It's sort of a similar notion. So I use Claude so much for prompting. It helps me get like a first like shot list in my sensibilities, and it's learned so much about me that it's really understanding that under the hood. It definitively helps me with prompting. I have not handwritten a prompt probably in about 7 months now, because Claude and the new version of GPT is quite good at that as well, at synthesizing, you know, your intention and bringing that out into a legible prompt. So it's kind of using that same concept, and this is where, you know, Joel's sort of like approach of like using similar frameworks and having them in different use cases really shines. Is sometimes when I'm really ripping through something super fast and I got to get a good music bed in, you know, I'll go to Claude and ask it, you know, I'll upload my first frame and last frame of each shot. And, you know, how do you enhance this? I'm approaching this with first of all, a sound effects context. So help me with prompts based on what you see in the first frame and last frame of this shot. And help me with sound effects, and take those to 11 Labs and generate those. Same thing with ambience. Like, you know, you're in New York City, it's the middle of the day, there's a lot of people in those shots. First frame, last frame of that shot, give me ambience, give me a prompt that will work with 11 Labs. And within 4 generations, you're going to get something that's like in a similar vein of what a professional is going to be able to get you there. Same thing with score. You know, if you're like, man, I don't know music, I'm not a curator, I got, you know, booted out of my first interview at CBC Radio because I just didn't know, you know, my Yo-Yo Ma from my Bachman Turner Overdrive or whatever. Thank you. That's a wide swath. I'm glad you appreciate that. You know, if you don't know music, Give this a spin. First frame, last frame. Write me a prompt for Suno that's going to get, and input, what you're hoping to get out of it. I want this to be happy yet tense all at the same time. Models really understand like multiple emotions at the same time. They're really good at distilling that, especially if you let them guide you in your prompting. So yeah, that's kind of a framework that I've started approaching, and I hope that you can take this and, take that to your works and just start playing around with it. What are the outputs that you're getting? And does it start to meet, some of the favorite films or viral pieces that you're seeing that have like insane amounts of sound design in them these days? So, I favor to bet that if you start playing around with this, that you're going to get way more beautiful surprises out of those outputs than just like trying to do it on your own. So, right, generating audio with AI. We've talked a little bit about this through Daniel's work. 11 Labs is one of the bigger places to go for generating those sound effects. Also music, they've got a pretty good music engine as well. I really like Suno for music generation. Coming from a producing background, it just really nails what I'm looking after. And those I do tend to hand prompt a little bit, just because like I've got that shorthand, and I'm usually by the time I'm at the music stage, I'm just slamming through everything. But again, Claude can absolutely help you with that, or ChatGPT as well. EQs, limiters, and compressors. Those sound like big words, don't they? An EQ is that graphic EQ that you played on, your mom or your grandpa's stereo, that bass, the middle, the treble. That's the super simple version of it. And, just as I showed you with the mixer over here, there's some really amazing controls, both in DaVinci Resolve and in Adobe Premiere that show you that. So I'm going to give a little example here of the equalizer that's built into DaVinci Resolve. So I've got a pretty high lift here on track 2. Now, if I remember right, because I did this very fast, I'm going to solo this one just to see what we're doing.
Astral tissue, a universe of softness.
Okay, so that was the voiceover that I generated out of 11 Labs. And I've applied a lot to this. So let me just quickly run through that. First of all, we've got a little bit of a lift on the treble end here, starting at about, approaching treble, really high mid, so 5,000 kilohertz. If I take that off and give that a spin.
Astral tissue, a universe of softness.
Not bad, but when you put this on, it sounds a little bit more voiceover-y, right?
Astral tissue, a universe of softness.
It's got a little bit more sparkle to it, and it really cuts through the other noise of, this is a really loud piece at the end of it, right? I also have some compression going on, which is, okay, how do I explain this? So, you're in a house, you've got a ceiling in it, right? It's usually 8 to 10 feet tall, right? If you are 8'2", your hair is going to get crumpled a little bit if you stand up straight in that house, or you're hunching down a little bit, right? The ceiling of that is where you tell the compressor, I don't want this loud thing to go past the 8-foot ceiling. Have I got you right now? Okay. That's kind of the basic of it. It's way more complicated inside of that, but that's a primer, right? Is that jiving? Yeah. Cool. Okay. So and I'll give you like a really perfect example of it. Like this is highly compressed voiceover. So I'm going to, I just got to remember where to get to on the compressor. There we go, compressor. So this is in like the dynamics tab inside of the Fairlight page in DaVinci Resolve. So I'm going to play it off and see what 11 Labs gave me.
Astral tissue, a universe of softness.
So there's like a, right? There's a little bit of an up and down to it. It's not the kind of like smooth, right railing the voiceover mic like.
Astral tissue, a universe of softness.
right? It's smoothed out. It's like, you know, your ear isn't like trying to like use its muscles to hear the little sort of like quiet parts in between, right? And that's kind of like the litmus test that I use in sound all the time. It's just like, what is the pain that my ears are telling me at any given moment, right? It's using that sort of like sensitivity of like, you know, what's being played with me, and is the audience going to go like, ugh, you know, when you hear that, and how can you smooth that out as much as possible? Compression and EQ are your fundamentals for that in a big way. Limiters are a different sort of enchilada. What I do with a limiter, and I do this with every single video that I touch, it's just a template now. So let me turn that guy off. The limiter, so I'll turn that on. What a limiter does is it's kind of a simpler form of compression. It really is just like, this is the ceiling and thou shalt not pass. Like really, it's just hard. The limiter inside of DaVinci Resolve that's in the dynamic suite of plugins is really amazing at this. It's super fast. I can just push it and it catches everything. So what I always do, and I will do this, can I do this from scratch? Let's see here. Okay, maybe not. So the default setting on this is 0, and that is digital peakness. And the crazy thing about audio is like, no matter how much you try and like put a ceiling on something, if you put it like right at 0, if you're playing on a really cheap like phone or a cheap TV, it's going to crackle and distort like crazy, even if you've got a limiter set to 0, even though that's like the peak of like give you the room and everything. So the safety net on that, and this is what YouTube like really favors as well, and social media, is I just set a limiter to -1. And 1 dB is just enough to cover the spectrum of modern devices in the way that they play back audio. It ain't gonna clip. And you're gonna like be just fine competing with everybody else who's like really pushing their mixes aggressively to be the loudest to hear what's going on. Have I still got all of y'all in here? Does that all make sense? Okay, a lot of head nodding, cool. Any questions so far?
Does Adobe Premiere have the same?
It absolutely does. Yeah, it's quite good. I actually used Adobe Premiere for ages and ages and ages before. I'm dominantly using Resolve a little bit more now, and that's where I learned to mix in the box for videos a lot more. It's a little bit more buried. Like it seems like I'm the only one in the world who knows where like the sub mixing window is in Premiere, because every time I show it to people, it's like, what? You can put plugins in there? That's amazing. Like it's a real mixer interface, but it's buried in like 4 twirl down, you know, areas, and you can't template things as easily as DaVinci Resolve does. Like I literally will take a copy and paste of a project and slam audio into it if it's something that I've built like a lot. Like the videos that we do for the main meetups and increasingly at the film stuff now. Like I don't touch any mix settings. I just slam things in because I've got my presets covered, and DaVinci really favors that. So, all right. Yeah, this is really the flow of how we can really elevate all of our pieces to the next level using sound. And I really encourage you all to just drill in, listen to all of your favorite music, all of your favorite clips, all of your favorite movies, and literally watch with your ears. Just see how things like hit you. See how they hit you on an emotional level, see how they hit you in a surprise level, you know, all the feelings basically. And this is a pretty good fast workflow that I've figured out in terms of like using Claude to, you know, give you inspiration on first and last images, to give you prompts, generating through 11 labs for all of your layers of sound effects, ripping them all into different tracks like this. I'm going to get to your questions in just a second. One thing that I haven't touched on is like really being clean about how you put different types of audio into different tracks. So the way that I did the UFO piece here was I put my my score in 5 and 6. So I've got real control if I need to like write audio levels or treat them with EQ or compression differently, and they're isolated. I think I've got, yes, that's another little score a score cue actually on track 3. Let me solo that for you. It's just a little kiss to go on top of what Suno gave me. And when you put them all together, you've got that melange of mystery all together, right? And let's see, did I do anything on 2? Yes, 2 was my voiceover. So it's far easier when you've got your tracks really laid out in a logical way. And that can be just to you. But if you're playing with others, please put your tracks in nicely and label them. Don't do what I've done and just call them audio. It's like, what are you doing, Kev? Like, you've been doing this for too long. Label your stuff. And then track 1, you know, Kling 3 was so good at giving me like 90% of everything. You know, I just made it its own track, rode the levels a little bit, and just layered stuff on top of it. So even though we've got these engines with like VO3 and CDance 2 and Kling 3 that give us a lot of audio stuff under the hood, it's not everything. There's always room for putting a little bit of your creativity into it and just, you know, pushing it even more and more and more. I always say in generative, live in the edit. Let the edit tell you at regular intervals of like how it's hitting. Put it away for a day or two, come back and go, oh, you know what? I'm going to generate this whole sequence like entirely from scratch because I saw a tree that was really freaking cool, you know, and it's inspired me to do something different, you know. Yeah, that's really the nuts and bolts of what I got here, folks. So this is the framework that I hope. Here's the framework that that I would love for you all to take away and start playing with. And you know, the visual stuff is starting to be like really taken care of for us by these models, and somewhat the audio too. But we have so much more influence on that subconscious, you know, hit of our storytelling if we really play in the audio sector. And I tell you, every time you see something with good audio design, you will pause and it hits you differently. So thanks for, you know, having me just kind of whistle this through for y'all. So questions?
Yeah, so 2 questions. How much control do you have with the current like clang and whatever to apply the EQ as part of your descriptive prompt? And also, what do you see as the place for like spatial audio in this sort of realm? Because that's really cool to me, because it's like from a developer standpoint, having to support that sort of stuff for like podcasts and for some stuff, but I haven't seen it come into this world yet.
I think it's such a, you know, Atmos is really developed now, and DTX and Dolby Vision, you know, the whole kind of like ecosphere of that is so well developed for a lot of devices. Getting people into sort of like the mindset of like how that works is like
is the tool set up to like control the location?
You can inside of Resolve and somewhat in Premiere. And I would suggest, you know, if you're really going that route, and I'm actually about to take a deep dive into that myself, is use Logic. Logic's Atmos support is brilliant. It's really, really good. It's really refined for spatial, for surround, any flavor of Atmos that you need. In terms of the EQ component, it sort of gives you a nice average of like what you're looking for, you know. And, you know, this is where my bias and experience comes in, because I don't prompt for it, because I know I can fix it later faster than trying to get it out of a generation. And this is kind of my mantra in general of like how to treat like generative production is don't burn all your tokens and credits like trying to get the most immaculate, super graded and super mixed and super sound designed thing. Get it 85% of the way there, and then use craft on top of it to get your grade in, to get your film grain in, you know, to hit all of those sort of like, okay, like this is mostly there. The performance is good. The timing is awesome, but like, the film stock looks like a potato cam, you know? But you can fix for that inside of DaVinci Resolve and also Premiere very easily. So yeah, over there.
Yeah, just an AI tip for the workflow. Gemini will analyze an entire video, and it can give you timestamp suggestions of where to put sound effects.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, Dale coming in with the heat. That's awesome. Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah. No, go for it.
Would you ever sidechain, like compress the music and sound effects from the if there's dialogue?
That's definitely a choice. If I prefer to. What I learned in Final Cut Pro way too long ago was audio keyframes are a pain in the butt. So look at these tracks. Is there a good example of me actually doing this in this one? Maybe not. Oh, yeah. Okay, here we go. So I never use keyframes ever, because they're stuck in one place. If you have to shift and edit, it's a pain in the butt, right? I will slice audio tracks and put crossfades in to get that ducking that you're looking for. I just like that because I can do that really fast. You can certainly set up a sidechain compressor for that. What sidechain does is it takes like my vocals, for example, and a music bed underneath, and the way that vocal is coming in and out will tell the compressor how to lower the music like right as how the voice is doing it. So it's semi-automated, but it could be a little bit intimidating to set up for new folks. But that's definitely a choice. Yeah.
Auto ducking AI feature in Resolve.
Yeah, yeah. And those are good too. Sometimes I find the aberrations kind of like ping pong all over the place. And, I work in audio. I'm a control guy. So sometimes that's great for fast rips, but sometimes it veers off a little bit for sure. Yeah. Any other questions? In the back.
Have you ever worked with animatics to generate animation or audio, especially audio?
Can you broaden that out? What do you mean by animatics specifically?
The storyboard, animated storyboard.
Yeah, definitely.
Generated audio from those kinds of materials. Have you ever had or seen any situation like that?
Yeah, I mean it's one of the many tools in the toolbox. If you're doing something where you have like a really concrete idea and you're ready to rip, just going into the generator and Bob's your uncle. You can go from first frames, first generations, and you're good. I actually put this together inside of 8 generations. I was so happy with like everything that Kling was giving me. But certainly when I need to get like buy-in from like a client or a production company, like I did in the last half of last year, yeah, absolutely animatics. I'll start with stills timed with music and sound effects. Sometimes some scratch audio as well. That's a great way of trying a story out before burning credits on video generations for sure.
I'm asking that because I struggle at least to see. I never really tried, even though I do this sometimes. I struggle to kind of believe that Suno or to move from Claude to Suno, analyzing the animatics.
I see. Yeah.
Like an action, like.
Yeah, I mean. And it's it's a first start, and what I like about generating things and just getting like things on paper is more than often I'll be so frustrated with the first result, I'll be really driven to just like iterate so fast and get it where I want to be, right? And that's kind of like hacking my own psychology in that. Frustration can be a wonderful creative motivator. So, yeah, it's one of the many tools in the toolbox to get an idea together, either to yourself or to anyone else to get buy-in, for sure. Yeah.
I want to kind of break to something that's kind of fun, random, because you can give all the technical terms and whatnot for prompting sounds and music, but you can also do emotive. So, like, what's the funniest expression or prompt that you gave that surprised the hell out of you? I think mine was "sing like you fucking mean it."
I'm the roulette methodology. So I've got like a framework of like, hey, I want aliens to like have a funny interaction with toilet paper in Area 51. Please give me 10 different scenarios of how that could play out. and it will give me like a micro treatment, and I go, oh, 4. That seems hilarious, you know? And it's sort of like, it's coming in with like an initial intention and then letting the model sort of like riff off of you, and then you riff off the model, and then like, oh, reinforce like, the drool coming off of, the person that's like super loving the toilet paper or whatever, right? And literally that phrase, reinforce, is the most powerful tool in refining your prompts when you've got, a co-pilot model on your side, for sure.
And complex. Adding the word complex.
Yeah. Depending on what you're going for sure. Yeah. It's just being intentional and knowing what you got. Or give me 10 options. I don't know what I want. Oh, let's go with that one and chase that rabbit hole and iterate. So, any other questions? Yeah.
Yes. Have you used Claude Code to create video through Remotion?
Through, what's that last word?
Remotion.
Remotion. No, I've heard a lot about it. That is something that I mean to absolutely start playing with. I was an After Effects motion designer for 20 years. That was like most of my work in traditional video. So I'm very excited to try that out. Absolutely.
By working with the model, what's your frustration in creating the music and the prompt for the Claude or for the generation, basically? Biggest frustration, and what's the biggest bottleneck in creating that prompt? That's like, you want it, you explain it, but the bot not just understanding.
Context window.
Context window.
Yep. I'm getting a lot better at managing my context engineering and refreshing context, but there's certain times where you hit walls and it's just like, okay, you know what? Let's just give this a clean slate, And often it's just like, you know what? I'm going to put this in the dustbin and start from over, definitely at a prompting level. And that's given me a lot of happy accidents, which have re-inspired me to keep chasing the rabbit hole again, for sure. That sounds like a happy turnaround in a sense, but sometimes, there's some days where I'm just like, okay, I really need this to be in this guardrail and do this. And it's just like, I'm not getting it today. I'm coming back tomorrow. And then the model will just be like, okay, here you go. The next day, I'm just like, okay, great. Nice chat. Thanks for taking my credit card. Any other questions before we wrap it up? Yeah.
Why aren't you doing your generation inside Result?
I'm sorry?
Why aren't you doing your generation inside Result?
Because I use a lot of different models.
But it can be in Result. There's no reason for it.
So define that for me. Like, what does that look like?
Well, the models are just being provided by the API, and Resolve provides both the VST3 and OFX plugin.
Yeah.
It should just be integrated. Like, if you have a scene and you want to make the audio track for it, you can use the multimodal model just to point out exactly where on the screen the different interactions happen.
Yep.
You can lay it out in your multi-track to create all those different clips.
Oh yeah, no, that's...
So you play the video, it can show you all the markers of where things are, and the link back to your multi-track.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a rabbit hole to chase for sure. It's something I've started like playing as a thought experiment, but just haven't had time to invest in myself in that. That's very fascinating. We got to wrap this up because we got to get the heck out of here. Thank you very much, folks, for coming tonight and absorbing all this. Join us next time back at Multimodal. We'll send those details out as soon as that's all pinned down. Thank you so much, folks.